Hello and welcome to this month's Fire Chiefs video message for May 2017. This month I have Dr. Captain from Fromm's with me. Jill, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Chief.
There's been a lot going on at Fromm's. As we've talked about here before, as we've communicated throughout the organization, we had a change back in January. Name change, but a lot of the faces stayed the same. Yourself and several others within, Fromm's bridged over from Merocracy to Innova, and very much appreciate that. And the continuity of what we have been doing was very critical for our personnel. So that's great. But we're here because there's a lot going on. There's been a lot that you have been doing over the last 2 to 3 years in getting us off our butts, getting us to address some of our issues and understand really with the reality how this job and these careers and this profession is impacting us, our health. Can you tell us what you've been focusing on and where we're going with and what some of these key points are?
Sure. Well, I have to tell you, the transition has gone smoothly with Innova, and we retained a lot of the core staff. So in terms of transition, it really has not been a problem. And I'm very happy to have been retained. Obviously, everybody knows I love my firefighters. One of the things that we've been working on is the cardiac risk reduction. When I started working at Fromm's 7 years ago, I thought the cardiac surveillance was really good because we did annual physicals, we had blood work, we did treadmill testing, and I thought, wow, this is really good because a lot of jurisdictions don't get annual physicals. So I thought we were doing a good job. And then we had 2 career firefighters that had significant coronary events in 2015. So Chief Coleman, who's the chief at the wellness at Fromm's, came to me and said, what can we do differently? We've been doing the same physical for 20 years, what can we do differently? So Chief Coleman was our guinea pig. He bared his chest doing treadmills at cardiology offices. But we did go and talk to several cardiology offices to come up with some recommendations about how we could do a better job of early cardiac risk detection. Okay. So we came up with some recommendations. Now when you come in to do your treadmill, you are not going to stop at 9 minutes. You're going to keep going until we get your heart rate to 90% of your target. Because if you're at 90% of your target heart rate, then the treadmill becomes a diagnostic tool. We can pick up some blockage. We've added a blood test. It's called the C-reactive protein. And the blood test actually starts at age 40, but we will do it for high-risk people. And the blood test, the C-reactive protein, is a cardiac risk marker. It's just like cholesterol. And then there's something called a calcium scoring CT. And it is the newer version of the heart-lung scan that Washington Adventists used to offer. Right. So I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. Let me show you how coronary artery disease develops. Right. Okay, so on the left, we have a normal artery. Okay, when you start developing cholesterol deposits,
you get small.
Yep, it's called a soft plaque, and it's cholesterol, fatty acids. It's kind of a compost heap, but it's also like a speed bump. So when the blood goes over it, it creates turbulence. Right. You can get a disruption if you look at the second from the right. Get a disruption of the lining of the artery. It's called hard plaque. It's like a scab inside your artery. It's a tiny, tiny injury inside your artery. This is what picks up calcium that we're seeing on the calcium scoring CT. Okay. Now, if you have a large blockage, this one on the far right, this we can pick up on treadmill if we get your target heart rate up.
Through the 12 lead, you're going to find that.
Exactly. And right before the winter holidays, we had one of the personnel come in. He was on the treadmill at 9 minutes. His heart rate was only 70% of target. Right. Once he hit 90% of his target heart rate, treadmill EKG was abnormal. We took him off the treadmill. He did not have any symptoms whatsoever. We sent him out to cardiology. He had a stent right before New Year's. He's back to work, full duty, no heart muscle damage.
And on an average, and averages are a bad mathematical, way of doing it, but on an annual style basis, we have what, 2 to 3 fines or saves? How many, people do we have on a normal basis that we've discovered either through the stress test, through the treadmill, or through our annual physical process?
I would say, on average, out of 2,000 physicals, we probably, this save on the treadmill, we've only started getting those because we're just now pushing people. But in terms of uncontrolled blood pressure or diabetes, I would say probably half a dozen a year. Okay. People that either haven't been diagnosed or have been diagnosed and haven't really been paying attention to it. Right. So we do get some saves every year.
And then as you've taken the stress the treadmill, and moved it up from 9 to 90%, you are also incorporating other screening tools, and those have made direct, saves or direct identifications.
That is true too. One of the other things that we've started doing is when you come in for your physical, if you've had your blood work done before the physical, we have a form, a cardiac risk form to fill out and ask about family history, have you seen a cardiologist, what your physical activity is, smoking, things like that. And we run cardiovascular risk calculators. And those, I talk with you and I say, look, you know what, if your blood pressure were under control, we could reduce your cardiac risk by this amount. So that's been very powerful to get the information in front of people.
Right, and you mean blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, diet, obesity, and physical inactivity.
Exactly.
And this is a folder and a flyer that is almost full production and ready to go.
Yep. With
that intent of during the downtime in the room or in FROMS, people can read through this, their Fire Fit IQ, and ask some of these questions. And then when you or the doctor, get in there, you have the chance of saying, okay, I'm going to have a scoring on this Epworth, sleepiness scale. These are things that motivate us or be indicators for us as the firefighter rescuers to address these topics.
Yes.
Right.
You're getting ahead of me, okay?
No, we're not ahead of you. We're always behind you because we're trying to keep up with what's going on.
Yeah.
So as we talk about the risk, what triggers and what makes the calcium scoring CT so beneficial?
So important. Okay. So if you go back to the picture where you saw that small hard plaque, the large blockage, that's not what's killing firefighters. Okay. The small block, that small hard plaque disease that picks up calcium, that's what's killing firefighters. And the fire science behind that, they did research and they did fire suppression drills with medical monitoring. They found that the core body temperature goes higher and stays higher longer. Right. You sweat like a pig. When you take that much water out of your bloodstream, the blood literally becomes a thicker milkshake. So now you got a hot, tired heart, pumping thicker blood, and the arteries become stiffer. So ordinarily, when the heart pumps, the arteries expand and recoil. Right. So now you're pumping thicker blood through a stiffer conduit, you get shear stress. So you create that little injury, you can make it worse. Platelets take care of injuries. And it's called platelet aggregation. My analogy for platelet aggregation is if a teenage girl cites Justin Bieber, you have a flash mob. That's what platelet aggregation is. Once one starts, they clump, they clot.
So ways by which we can address that. How do we address the hot and sweaty, the thicker, blood, and the less elastic, artery as we deal with, our activities post a fire?
Okay, so a couple of things. Hydration is always an issue in the fire department. It's an issue with any athlete, whether it's a professional athlete or a tactical athlete as a firefighter. But we do need to pay more attention to that. On the fire scene, proper hydration, cooling, we're looking into, that'll be sort of our next phase, is what cooling processes can we use that will help reduce the stress on the heart, appropriate fluid and electrolyte replacement. And also, too, we've started recommending that, absent other medical problems, start taking a low-dose aspirin. Okay. So now, going back to the calcium scoring CT, and it's not all just fire suppression, okay? That's not the only thing that's causing heart attacks. So as you and I are sitting right here, our risk of a heart attack, we're going to call it 1, okay? Because we're mine's a 10, yours is a 1. We're relaxed.
Meaning you're nervous. Okay.
Okay. When you respond to a fire scene with lights and sirens or a medical emergency, your risk of a heart attack goes up 14 times. 14 times more likely to have a heart attack responding with lights and sirens.
Because of the stress.
Because of the adrenaline, the cortisol, all of that. And then when you engage in fire suppression, because of all those physiological changes, your risk of a heart attack goes up 136 times what it is right now while we are sitting here. So that calcium scoring CT, that little plaque, that hard plaque disease, that's what the calcium scoring CAT scan picks up.
Right.
Now it is a CAT scan. It's like a very fancy chest x-ray. The amount of radiation that you get is about the same amount of radiation you get in the background just living your life in a year. It only takes 5 minutes for the whole procedure. One of the barriers in the past has been the cost, but we have the cost down from 60, it's between 60 and $100.
And how do you, I mean, because I did it, I went down to the Rockledge area. As you said, it's 5 minutes in the tubes. It's longer to change, get on the bed or on the board and have, get positioned for the tube to do its and run you through it. Tell me what the locations are and why that pricing does range between 60 and 100.
Okay, well, the pricing structure is very simple. If that CAT scanner is inside a hospital, it's $100 or more. If it's in Montgomery County or Frederick County, it's $75. Go figure. And if it's in Howard County, it's only $60.
So there's multiple locations
Yes.
that people can go to local to their home.
Yes, we have identified facilities that are in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Maryland.
Okay.
And we've got like 5 counties in Maryland.
So when they come in and get actually a prescription or a script from you.
Exactly.
For that, they have a list of locations that they can go to.
Exactly.
And get that. And usually they can get the next day or sometimes even same day type of service.
Yeah, it depends. Like the facilities in Montgomery and Frederick they're just solo radiology facilities, so the turnaround tends to be a little quicker. But yeah, if it is a prescription, so if you say, Dr. Captain, I want a calcium scoring CT. I'll talk to you, get your history, make sure it's appropriate because you don't want to be wasting money in radiation. And then I write your script. On the back side of the script, it has all the locations with the telephone numbers. And then all of the places, once you get it done, send it to me. But you're right, I had one guy walk out from his physical with a script. He called up, they happened to have an opening, and I got his report the next day.
And that just adds into the list that we had a second ago of the factors or the things that influence your cardiac health.
Right.
It's not an answer. It's not the answer. It's only a part of the tools.
It is.
Towards diets, activity, and the stresses and the other components.
So that's the future. So what we're doing right now is trying to improve our cardiac risk detection. So if you've got very early cardiac disease, coronary artery disease, that's what we're trying to do, is to pick up the early disease. The things that aren't going to cause you any problems until you run into a burning building. Well, now one thing I will tell you, because people always ask this, okay, there's a screening tool for us for the physical. It's voluntary. Insurance doesn't cover it. If you don't get the CAT scan, even if I think you should get the CAT scan, if you don't get it, I'm going to leave you on the floor. I'm not taking you off the floor. If you get the CAT scan, even if the result is bad, I'm not going to take you off the floor. What it lets us know is that we just need to be more aggressive with controlling your risk factors. So that's what we're working on right now, is the early detection. The next phase of this really is going to be prevention. Okay. Recently, Inova hired a registered dietitian, which has been fantastic. She's bright, motivated, energetic, and although she had not worked with firefighters before, she picked up real quickly on the needs of somebody that needs to feed themselves on a 24-hour shift. So we've gotten good feedback for that. We have a wellness fitness blog that's under construction, and we have a couple of the young firefighters that have been working on that. We have a physical therapist that's done some volunteer time at the academy. So there are a lot of things that we kind of are starting that we really need to implement so that it gets out to everybody, that prevention is better than early detection.
Right. So is there anything else on the heart before we go into cancer? Because there's obviously several different things, and our cancer and our screening program, as an example, has been with us for legacy and many decades now.
I think that's pretty much it on the cardiac front.
So the cancer front is 60% of the people in the fire rescue profession are going to have and going to contract or come down with some style of cancer.
Yes.
It is a issue that is in the forefront within our profession, and is one that we've talked about the respiratory, we've talked about the carcinogens, we've talked about the fact that we truly don't know what we're being faced with. That's the most basic way of identifying it. We only know what science is telling us there. We know that there's more there that we don't know what it is. And the best way for us to protect ourselves is to use the right tools to protect ourselves. And then once we come out of that fire, get cleaned as soon as possible and be able to segregate the dirty from the clean. well, in many sense, our turnout gear, our uniforms, take a shower, clean the apparatus, clean the equipment with the appropriate protection, meaning gloves, dust masks, for example. But let's just talk about the parts about cancer screening that Fromm's has as an offering.
Okay, so the one thing, when I first started here, the SARS program was already in place, and I have to tell you, it has been just the biggest jumpstart to cancer awareness overall, simply because it brings up the topic of cancer. And the SARS program, for Chris Saris, for those of you all who don't know Chris died at age 42 from colon cancer. And his family helped set up a fund to offset the cost of colonoscopy. And the recommendation these days for firefighters is colonoscopy starting at 40. General population recommendation is 50. So there have been some barriers to getting a colonoscopy before age 50. If it's a financial barrier, the SARS fund will reimburse any out-of-pocket costs associated with the colonoscopy. So that has been, we've reduced the barrier to that. And one firefighter said, well, let's see, if I have no out-of-pocket costs and it's something I should do, the only thing that's keeping me from doing it is being squeamish. So that's been really good. Then I don't remember exactly when we got the baby wipes, but the SARS fund actually bought the first round of baby wipes that you use on the scene for wiping your neck. That's in conjunction with the Wash Your Hood Sunday. So I think that's really important because, as an aside, I have seen more thyroid and parathyroid issues, which are neck, tumors and cancers, seen more in the last 7 years than I did in the previous 23 years of practice. So we're getting the awareness out for that.
And that's driven by the fact that the least level of protection we have in the fire environment is at the hood interface. Now, there are some new hoods coming out with membranes and barrier items in there, and we're actively looking at those new products to give us a better level of protection around the face and the neck, which is also a very thin area of the skin.
It is.
Where there's a great absorption capability. So that's an issue. But the funny thing that's highlighting as well now is the gloves. And while we are cleaning our hoods, every Sunday, or probably about every month or every time we have a significant use, we aren't cleaning our gloves. And how that interacts with, and we do touch everything with our hands when we're in a fire, and the carpet and all the things that have the polymers and all the fire retardant materials, which is what is really driving all this bad environment and all these off-gassings. So one of the next things that's really being tackled is how about the gloves? Again, we didn't have SCBA in the past, and we only use SCBA for a certain portion of our activities. Now we're saying use SCBA for the entire portion of our fire environment and our fire exposure, and how we deal with cleaning our gear immediately thereafter, how we decon ourselves immediately after we come out to an appropriate extent, how we work on wiping our hands, our necks, our face before we go to rehab, and then what we are doing in rehab at the canteen or on the fire ground, so that we're dealing with some of those components of heat, stress, and the impacts on the body is a clear part of it. Now, one of the things that we talk about is hydration, but we also have to talk about sun UV. We're out and about a lot, and while we're dealing with things and we come to work and you never know what you're going to be exposed to, we have to be proactive in the perspective of our UV impact.
Yes.
As firefighters and EMTs.
Absolutely, because I think that the fire and rescue personnel probably spend more time outdoors than just about any other profession with less covering, because drills, maneuvers, maintenance, standing on the scene, on the side of a road, you all get a lot of sun. It's my goal, because I guess now it's official, I've declared 2017 cancer awareness. 2016 we were really ramping up the cardiac risk detection. 2017 I want this to be the ramp up for cancer awareness. But it's my goal by the end of the year that every station will have a pump bottle of sunscreen that you can just use as you're walking out the door. And also, because it's primarily men, I want it to be socially acceptable for you all to use sun protection. But the risk of skin cancer is much higher in the fire department than the regular population. And if you're going to use sunscreen, I would encourage everybody to make sure you get the backs of your ears, the back of your neck, and if you have shorts on, your calves. But it is very important. A lot of people think, well, I never burn. But the fact of the matter is, that's true. The darker your skin, the less likely you are to get skin cancer. But if you do get skin cancer, it is much more likely to be fatal. So melanomas that occur in African Americans are much more likely to be lethal. Okay. So everybody can use sun protection.
Okay. As we go about, and I have no problem, concurring with the desire of having, pump sunscreen in the station. And one of the things that my family dealt with was Lyme's disease. Well, we've dealt with that as a work exposure to some of our folks, and it's one of those things you don't anticipate maybe going out and being traipsing through the woods, to be frank and honest, but it's a very much a high risk exposure in our geographic area, and it's something that we need to address, both the UV and the sun, as well as our other tigers and other critter exposures that we may get exposed to. That do you prepare for it when you go out boating? Yes. Do you prepare for it when you go out hunting? Yes. Do you prepare for it when you take your shower at work and and get dressed for the day? Not really, because you don't anticipate doing this or doing that, and those are considerations that we need to change as we consider how we go about our day. So if 17 is cancer and 16 was cardiac, what is it that we're going to do after Rick's passing to amp up the push?
So part of it, well, this is step one,
right.
All right, getting the information out where people can access the information. We have the brochure that we're going to publish. We have a poster that we're going to get into all the firehouses.
Emphasizing the cardiac
exactly.
health and focusing on that.
And then also, too, when I talked with Rick's wife, Virginia, she said that she never knew what was going on.
Right.
That Rick would come home from his physical and she would say, "How was it?" And he would say, "Fine." So she thought that getting the significant others involved would be really important too. And so for the record, if anybody wants to bring their significant other in, they are more than welcome to come to the physical exam. I'm happy to have them. Mm-hmm. But we also are going to try to get either a postcard or a flyer mailed to the families of the firefighters, right. Just saying, hey, this is what we're doing.
And I got no problem explaining it here, because this is the discussion we've had, and I've said it in some other forums already, is I hearken it back to the school backpack PTA distribution system. You put it in each of the kids' backpack, and it goes home. It's got a chance of being obtained or received by the parent, and then engaged and viewed on. So the best means, or one of the means that I think we have to outreach to the spouses and the family members, is the traditional mailing.
Yep.
Mail it to the home and provide a pamphlet like this, provide an informational brochure to the family of firefighters X.
Exactly.
And let the family then ask the firefighter the questions about this screening, about cardiac, about the cancer screening, about these other things related to their loved one's health, yes, as it relates to their profession. And we will get a higher level of interaction because we've included the family members.
Yes.
We had a very strong family support network in the years past. This is another thing where the family support network can key into and engage with, being able to disseminate that information to the spouses and the loved ones and the partners of our members, so that we do have that information and support, because we do, as members, only, and we're only as effective as we are because of our spouses. It's the families that dedicate their time and lose their time with us so that we're here at work. And we're only as good as a firefighter or rescuer as we are because of the support the family have provided us. That starts with recruit school and continues throughout the 20, 30 years of our career because of the family. So we have to get that family back involved in our traditional and annual health, so that we can keep the member healthier.
Yep.
So that's something that's on our forefront, and
Yep.
we're gonna, like I said, go a little retro on our communication style, so that we can do that. So a lot going on at Fromm's, and anybody can always make an appointment outside of their physical
Yep.
sequence. Reach out to yourself, Captain Glazier, Chief Coleman, and say, I need to come in and see the folks at Fromm's, and this is the why. We have a lot of great capabilities there, and totally a benefit, as you say, from an organizational perspective. Running almost 3,000 people, 2,500 people through Fromm's on an annual basis is a huge step towards the appropriate initiatives for dealing with our professions and our occupations. So great thanks to yourself and all the folks at Fromm's and Inova for everything that they're doing. So more to come from you, from me, and the such. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome. And I will say, last thing is, if anybody wants a prescription for the calcium scoring CT, feel free to email me. I'm on the county email list.
Right.
But just bear with me, because we actually, since Rick died, so in the year prior to that, we had completed about 120 CAT scans. And since Rick died, I've had over 30 requests, and I've had 20 reports, more than 20 reports come in. So I'm playing a little bit of catch up, but I'm happy to be swamped. Just bear with me.
Right. No, very well. And again, reach out. Everyone needs to, get those tools and use them. So when we're talking about tools, I want to transition to a topic that gets us ready to fight fire. It's the incident response policy. Now, it was out there. It's going to start up, and it's going to be actually effective on July 1st. Our folks, just like they need to train and be healthy, they need to train on our policy, and we really want to make our folks emphasis on how to get that up to date and get going. Actually, I jumped a little bit out of sequence, and one of the things that I wanted to tie into our discussion here about general overall health is, as a profession, we have to be prepared for the unknown, and our families need to be prepared for the unknown as well. There's a lot of support that's in our organization, and I'll use the Don't Panic Foundation as one group that provides planning, provides preparedness, seminars and suggestions as to how to focus on activities. As we see here on the screen, the Don't Panic Foundation was designed to, and is purpose for, to help our members be ready for the activities. Now, they run a couple seminars on an annual basis, and Wills for Heroes is an example. Do our members have wills in place? Do our members have advanced directives in place? Do our members have the financial capabilities in place for the unexpected and the tragic activities to occur? Do we have the simple basic reference information in one place, so that when the horrible of horrible has occurred, does the spouse or does a family member have the abilities to pick up the information and be able to engage? Simple as passwords, passwords and account numbers. I mean, we would say something in the context of the safe deposit key, or the passwords and the account numbers to all those different things out there in the universe we have. That's an opportunity at the Don't Panic Foundation, as a organization built by our own personnel, that has already had as well a large outreach of and a request for information from folks, because this is something that, when you realize, are my beneficiaries up to date? Are my medical and family support documentation up to date? Now's the time to do that. Always do that. Keep doing it on a recurring basis. Don't let something happen and then the problem develop as to who was and who is on record as such. So again, the Don't Panic Foundation, a lot of good organizations inside MCFRS, Fire Rescue, that are there to help our people get ready for the unexpected and the horrible and the unknown. So a lot of good stuff. Um, Next month, I'm going to have Lieutenant Baltrowski and the folks from EMS here, because we are engaging in a lot of mobile integrated healthcare, trying to keep our community healthier and keep them able to not rely upon the 911 system as much for their safety net. A lot's going on, and a lot will continue to be going on. So Lieutenant Baltrowski will be joining me next month as we talk about that. So again, Jill, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me,
Thank you
Chief.
for everything that's going on at Fromm's and Inova with Chief Coleman and Captain Glazier and everybody there. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot that everyone needs to be aware of. But I was frank. I was very blunt with my messaging a couple weeks back. We're stubborn, we're hard-headed, and we have to get off of that situation and ask the questions. Jill made an example. She demonstrated a scenario there where there was nothing holding us back from doing this but our vanity or our resistance and change. You can make the decisions, you can make the change, and you can engage with all the tools and resources available. So do that. Again, it's May, beautiful weather outside. We talk about it here. Jill mentioned it. It's hydration. You got to come to work, your duty night, your standby, already hydrated. You can't start once you get there, because you could have already run a call. You could have already been faced with that once in a career call at the first 5 minutes of your period of work. So you have to come to work, do your standby, ready to work, and pre-hydrated with the right stuff. Water, a little bit of electrolyte stuff, and get ready, because you have to be ready. Enjoy the weather as we wrap up month of May and prepare and move into summer. Thank you very much. Take care of yourself, and until next month, see ya.